Good afternoon, and thanks for being with us on this Tuesday, May 28th. I'm Stacey Delicat. It is day 4 of former NFL star Kellen Winslow II's rape and indecent exposure trial. Today, we're hearing from Jane Doe number 4, a woman who says Winslow raped her back in 2003. Plus, accused of murdering his own 5 children and driving their bodies through the South before dumping them. Timothy Jones's defense continues out of South Carolina today as his attorneys seek to prove insanity drove him to kill. Joining me live in studio this afternoon is trial attorney Catherine Smith. Thanks for being here, Catherine. It should be quite an eventful day ahead in California. We are waiting for the Kellen Winslow Jr. Trial to get underway really any minute now, actually. But let's just talk about this. We expect to hear from Jane Doe number 4 today, and a lot of this case is going to come down to the credibility of the alleged victims. What can we make so far of the first 3 women we heard from?
Well, I mean, first of all, there were definitely some issues, I think, with Jane Doe 1. I mean, I personally, find all of their stories credible, but I think that the defense is going to be able to pick through and say, some of this testimony was not terribly wrought with emotion. But as we know, victims, that's the way sometimes they recount their stories. So that's what's really so hard. You can have a completely credible victim, but the defense can still have fodder to poke holes in their stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the second Jane Doe that we heard from certainly had a bit more emotion. She refused to look at Winslow in the courtroom. She said, "I can't look at my rapist." But the third woman that we heard from, she is the woman who says she lived on the same street as Winslow and he was biking by and basically exposed himself. She actually said she didn't look at him the day of that incident, and that's a big issue because the defense is saying, look, we don't doubt this woman had a terrifying encounter, but it wasn't with our client. That's going to be a problem for the prosecution, right?
Right, because credibility is paramount here. Because first of all, in the situations in which there is DNA, the defense, of course, is saying not that it didn't happen, but that it did happen and it was consensual. So there, the credibility is paramount. The other incidents, it's even arguable that it's more important because the defense is saying this never happened. Right? So it's extremely important that these witnesses come across truthfully and they lay a prima facie case, meaning they say this person, the defendant sitting there, is the one who did that crime.
Yeah, and that part, I'm not sure how firm that has been just yet. But again, we're going to hear from a 4th alleged victim today. Let's take you right now live into the courtroom where Detective John Johnson is on the stand. He was the investigator for one of the indecent exposure incidents. All right, Detective John Johnson from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department on the stand, although we were obviously just looking at the judge. And as we heard the witness say, he interviewed not just Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2, 2 of the alleged rape victims, but also Jane Doe 3, the Vietnamese woman who claims that Winslow exposed himself to her. He also interviewed the defendant. His testimony here, obviously a key part, right, Catherine?
Wants to lay the foundation as to that the interviews were done properly, that they were done standard, and of course, so that way we can get those entered into evidence to the extent they are not already been used.
All right, quick sidebar going on in court there. We just heard Detective John Johnson testify about the surveillance operation he had on the defendant. He talked about putting basically cameras inside the defendant's compound after these accusations came forward. He said it was a pull cam warrant. Is this common, Catherine? I mean, I know this is in California. The laws are a little different state to state, but in a case like this where you have 2 women coming forward saying that Winslow raped them, another woman saying he exposed himself, is it common then to begin a surveillance operation and get a warrant for a camera on the grounds of one's home?
I would think so. I mean, they certainly had, I think, enough evidence, and obviously a judge agreed to warrant some sort of surveillance. They wanted to, I'm sure, confirm certain facts that the victims had said. For example, the type of car that he was driving, and also to see what other types of activities that he was involved in. With high-profile people, too, you need to make sure that there's a safe time where you can arrest them and you can make, you want to make sure they don't have guns. There's so many different things that would warrant this type of surveillance. But I think the important part is that it was surreptitious, meaning it wasn't some obvious camera. This was a camera that was meant to look like some normal equipment that was on like a regular electrical pole, and it was secretly installed. So I'm excited to see what the detective viewed.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing that footage as well. I'm just wondering, though, what would he expect to get? Just having a hidden camera essentially on the grounds of Winslow's home. I mean, his comings and goings. It's not inside the home, as he said. What could he get that would perhaps link him to these cases at this point?
I mean, first of all, the car, right? We know that these different victims said that he drove a certain car, so we want to be able to see his comings and goings. I mean, at that time, we have to understand, now we have the gift of hindsight, but at that time, they didn't know if he was, kidnapping people, bringing them back to his compound to hurt them.
Right.
We don't know. And so that's part of the purpose of the surveillance, is to monitor his comings and goings and see if he is, in fact, violating other laws.
That's a good point, and especially about the car as well, the Hummer. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, much more live from California, and another programming note for you. The judge is now reading the jury instructions in the McStay family murders case as both sides prepare for their closing arguments. You can watch all of that live on our website, lawandcrime.com. You won't want to miss it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.